but there's a lot of other equally good reasons to start planning your year now. One of those is we should always be working ahead, regardless of where we are in the cycle of the year. Projects are less rushed when we're working in advance. That means fewer mistakes. And when problems do come up, there's more margin in our schedule, in our time to be able to fix those projects. Proactive is always better than reactive. Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 25 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and I'm just so grateful that you are here. I know some of you have been here since the beginning of the podcast, and thank you so much for that. That means a lot because we've been on this journey together, and what a journey it's been, right? If you've recently joined, thank you for that. I'm glad that you're here, and I encourage you to check out some of the earlier episodes. There's some great content on what this holistic productivity thing is all about. There's some great interviews that we have, so hopefully you'll check that out. But I say this all the time. My goal for doing this podcast is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I think one way that we can live fully is to celebrate our wins. When was the last time that you celebrated a win in your life? Now, I don't mean a big party every time. I mean, that would be cool, right? But I mean, just a simple acknowledgement that, hey, that was a win. Just a quiet moment out to reflect and to celebrate and to acknowledge that you had a win. You know, life throws so much at us and it doesn't stop. It doesn't seem to let up or slow down. And if we don't take that time, even just a moment to celebrate, that win can get lost in the madness. So find a way to celebrate when you get those wins. Maybe it's splurging on a venti coffee or a sweet treat that you don't normally have. Maybe it's a little bit longer lunch break and go outside, enjoy the cool weather of fall. Maybe it's just a little bit of time at the end of the day to reflect on the accomplishments that you've had and the wins that you have enjoyed. Whatever it is for you, the more you celebrate those wins, the more your confidence grows and the more success you see. So celebrate that win. You deserve it. And again, I'm so glad that you are here and investing in your future. Now, this week, we are going to talk about next year. Man, it is almost here. We are almost into 2026. I had a conversation with a childhood friend, and she asked about our vacation plans for this year. And I started telling her, what we're doing, and she got confused because she was talking about this year being 2026. And so when I said, this year we're doing this and next year we're going to go here, she's like, wait, you're doing that in 26 or 27? I said, no. This year is still 2025. Next year is 2026. And she said, this year is practically over. I'm just rounding up. So, funny little confusion there, as often happens over text. But I get what she means. It's hard to believe that we are in September and just a few short months, few short weeks until 2025 is over. Now, if you have budget responsibilities at your job, you're probably already planning the 2026 budget because it has to go through, all these reviews and get voted on by the board or, whatever the process is. And that means that you're probably planning your 2026 programs and projects as well. You need those for the budgeting process, right? When I traveled all the time for work, I would have my travel calendar planned by this time every year. Of course, there was the budgeting implications, but I also needed to schedule times, put those on the calendar. Sometimes there was conferences or events that I had to work around. And so at this time, there was a lot of planning that was happening for the future year. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Not so much about budgeting. There will be a component of that, but we're talking about planning your 2026 goals. And if it feels weird to say 2026, get used to it. You only have a couple months left to do that. In episode 15, I did a mid-year review and check-in to just make sure that you are finishing out the year strong. And I'll put a link in the show notes for that episode if you missed it. I think there's still some really good information there because we do have 4 months left in 2025. But in that episode, I taught the RESET method. A RESET is an acronym for how you can finish out your year strong. RESET stands for reflect on your progress. Look at what you've already accomplished. Celebrate your wins. I just talked about that, right? That's an important part of that reflection process. E is for evaluate your goals. Has anything changed so far this year? There's been a lot of change that happened early on this year. How has that affected your goals? Are your goals still the same as they were at the beginning of the year? Next is set new intentions. Take this opportunity to reconnect with your why, determine what goals need to be tweaked or added. The next E is energize your systems. Make sure that your systems are still working, that everything is still functioning the way that you intended to. This is a great opportunity to get out of the mindset of, well, we've always done it this way. That can be a system that is holding you back. And finally, the T is for take action. Keep moving forward. Put the plan in motion. It's an easy step, but it's often overlooked. That is a quick look at the RESET method. If you want to go back and listen to that whole episode, we dive deeper into each one of those steps. But this is great for middle of the year. But now here we are starting fresh for 2026. And just like my friend, we have to start thinking in terms of 2026 if we're going to hit the ground running. Budgets, of course, are a big reason for this, but there's a lot of other equally good reasons to start planning your year now. One of those is we should always be working ahead, regardless of where we are in the cycle of the year. Projects are less rushed when we're planning ahead, when we're working in advance. That means fewer mistakes. And when problems do come up, there's more margin in our schedule, in our time to be able to fix those projects. Proactive is always better than reactive. It's just more strategic. It's more, it's not as stressful. So if you can be proactive instead of reactive, that is always the preferred method. Another reason that planning ahead is necessary is if we're working with third parties. A lot of times we have to get on their calendars and schedule time with them, make sure that we're all planning the same thing. Those are just some of the reasons that we should be planning for 2026 right now. So how do we start that process? What does it look like to prepare for success in 2026? Well, I went with another acronym, and it's simple to remember. It is plan. You need to plan for 2026. And we're going to dive into these, but really quick, let me lay out what that means. P stands for picture your vision. The L is link to resources. A is assign goals. And N is navigate the steps. So let's dive into that and unpack that to see what it really means. Picture your vision. We want our vision to drive our planning process and our goal setting for 2026. Our vision really defines the projects and actions that we're going to make that help us get to our destination, how we run our business, how we live our life, how we fuel our purpose. I teach my coaching clients to create horizons for 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. And those horizons just help us visualize what's coming up in those time periods. But then it allows us to focus on the things that are right in front of us with that 1 year horizon. Look at what you need to accomplish in the next 12 months to achieve your bigger vision for life. You're looking at just that 1 year, small steps that will help you get to your ultimate vision or goal. One question I like to ask to help jumpstart the process is, if the newspaper were writing a story about you, about your business, about your life, about you, about the things that you're passionate about, what would the headline be 1 year from now? Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying every to-do list or project management app, you know how exhausting it can be. You download the app, you set it up, enter all your data, and then scramble to cancel it before the trial ends. Trust me, I've been there and it's no fun. That's why I love Efficient.app. Alex and Andra, a husband and wife team, have spent over a decade testing and reviewing software of all types so you don't have to. Calendars, project management, banking, planners, email marketing, you name it, they've covered it with honest reviews and side-by-side comparisons. And they don't sugarcoat it. If a tool isn't worth your time, they tell you straight up. I've personally found their reviews super helpful when I was trying to sort through different project management apps. It saved me a ton of time and frustration. Best of all, they often have special deals on the tools they recommend so that you can save money. I'm especially grateful to Efficient.app because they've been supporting the Wholistic Productivity Podcast since the very beginning. The best way to check them out and support the podcast is through the link in the show notes. So next time you're looking for software, let Efficient.app do the work for you. Trust me, you will not regret it. Once you know that headline, once you know where you will be or where you want to be a year from now, now you can start building in the steps that you need to take to get there to make that headline a reality. If you know where you want to be at the end of the year, you should have some idea of what you need to get there. So let's look at the L, link to resources. Now, what resources or habits are you going to need to help you reach your goals? What obstacles might you need to address? I've already mentioned budget, and that is a huge resource. It's probably the first thing that we think about. It is important, whether it's a professional goal, a personal goal, or even a purpose-driven goal, to look at how much money is going to be required to accomplish all the things that I want to do next year. If you're talking about your personal goals, that money is likely coming from your own personal budget. And if you have a spouse or a partner, you may want to discuss this with them. It's great if you have these big goals, but if that's going to mean, dipping into your savings and you're children's college fund or something like that, you may want to have some sign off on that first, right? Since I started running, I've found that it's not as inexpensive as I thought it was. I used to think, running's a cheap hobby. You just buy a pair of shoes and go out there and run. Well, it is the shoes, and those wear out pretty quickly if you're running a lot. But there's race entry fees. There's gear that you have to buy. There's energy that you need to worry about, hydration. There's a lot that goes into it that I didn't realize until I started getting into running. But budget isn't the only resource that we need to consider. And time may even be a more important resource to account and budget for. Time is our most valuable resource. I don't care who you are. We all have 24 hours in the day. That's it. You can't go out and work hard and earn more time. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy or you're poor or you're middle class. We all have 24 hours in the day. So understanding the time commitment that your goals are going to require is important as you are planning 2026. Let's go back and look at my running hobby. As I train for longer and longer races, that means longer and longer training runs. That means more time out of the schedule. And I need to know where I'm going to find that time. Where am I going to be able to carve out a couple of hours to go run 10, 12 miles or whatever it is that I'm doing? There are other resources that we need to account for as well. We need to look at our energy. That may mean how much sleep are we going to get? We need to look at our support systems and the people and the things around us that help us accomplish our goals. It's easy to overlook the involvement that your partner or that your kids, that your family, your friends may play in supporting you in achieving the goals. And that's important to take into consideration as well. And then what habits do you already have that will help you? What habits do you need to form that will help you reach your goals? All of these things are resources. And when we talk about linking resources, it's important that we are accounting for all of these and budgeting them correctly so that we can be successful in 2026. Let's move on to A, which is for assign goals. Now, this is where we start getting into actually planning out what we want to accomplish for the year. If you can map out your goals for the entire year, that is fantastic. Again, I used to be able to do a lot of that at work because there was so many things that were already set. I knew at this point I was doing this and this was coming up. And so that's the schedule sort of drove my planning. You don't have to go into a lot of detail right now about all of the goals, especially the ones at the end of the year, but you have to know that they are coming up and you need to plan for them so that you don't get surprised when the time comes. You do need to get them on your radar for future planning sessions. And of course, if there is a budget implication, you need to know enough about the project so that you can get the budget right at this point. But where you want to start focusing your energy here is on the 1 to 2 projects in each pillar or in each area of life that you need to start with at the beginning of the year. This makes sure that we're ready to go on January 1 and there's not a slowdown or a lag because we have to prepare or get ready. It also might be good to spend some time planning the goals that have the biggest impact. What brings in the most revenue? What impacts the most customers or clients? What is the biggest thing that you are trying to accomplish in 2026? And even if it's closer to the middle or the end of the year, start planning on that now because of the impact that it's going to have. As you are planning out these goals, it's important to use the SMART goal framework. When setting those goals, make sure that they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But because we're not just doing this for our professional goals, you'll want to look at this process for your personal and purpose-driven goals as well. Again, that is where so many productivity systems fail, is that we're only looking at the professional side of our life. My employer is not paying me to go out and run races. That is a personal goal. That is something that is meaningful to me. And so I have to plan for that. And I'll tell you, my big goal for 2026 in that area is to run my first half marathon. And I already have that scheduled. It's on the calendar. It's paid for. So that's again, a personal goal that I have set for 2026 that we're going to make happen. The final piece of our plan for 2026 is to navigate the steps. And now that we have our top goals, it's time to dig into the nitty-gritty and get down to really planning out what that looks like. This is when the goal roadmap comes in so handy. If you don't have that, it is found in the Wholistic Productivity Planner. You can find that for sale online, and I'll put a link in the show notes to where you can get that. But the goal roadmap really goes beyond the SMART goals to dive in and plan out your goals in detail, a lot of depth. We've already done some of the steps in the goal roadmap process through the plan framework. We've looked at our resources, we've tied it in with our vision, and that goes back to the why that we're doing this. But now take some time to develop that elevator pitch, figure out how you're going to celebrate your win when you get done, and look at some of the key milestones. Ask yourself, what are the first steps that I need to take, and when will I need to take those steps? If you're not familiar with the goal roadmap process, one of the big steps is to identify all of the milestones that are needed to get us to achieving that goal and assign dates to them. This is a critical step that we often miss when we're creating our goals and planning those out. Now, if you are at work and maybe you have access to project management software, this can be a great way to do that. For plugging in your dates and deliverables, for tagging team members or individuals. You may not have access to that for your personal goals or your purpose-driven goals, but I would encourage you to find a system of doing that so that you have that level of detail behind your goals as well. The more detail you can put in right now, the better. Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. Living with pain is no fun at all. Whether it's sore muscles from a workout, nagging joints, or even stress that just won't leave you alone. That's why I love Little Golden Shepherd. They make all natural butters from organic herbs and essential oils, formulated to ease pain, reduce stress, and even soothe sensitive skin. I use the muscle butter after tough workouts, and the joint butter is perfect for my knees, which somehow were bad even when I was a kid. I'm so grateful to have Little Golden Shepherd sponsoring the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. The way they support the show is super simple. Every time you shop through the link in the show notes, a portion of your order helps keep this podcast going. And here's the best part. If you use the promo code WHOLEPROD, you'll save 15% on your first order. That's promo code WHOLEPROD, WHOLPROD. Try Little Golden Shepherd today. You're going to love it as much as I do, and your muscles will too. Better. This time of year is always exciting for me as we dream big and plan smart for the year ahead, right? We're looking at all of those things that we want to accomplish, and it can get exciting. But There's a couple of warnings that I want to leave with you as we wrap up this episode here. Don't forget about 2025. We still have to finish the year strong, or we could miss some of our goals still for this year. Something that's always helpful for me to separate out, is it work for 2025? Is it planning for 2026? I like to block time specifically for planning my next year. Try to find times when you can focus at least for several hours. I really prefer taking a whole day. And if you can do it, get away from everybody, the office, the family, whoever you need to get away from. That sounds bad, but so that you have some uninterrupted time to really think and dream and plan out what you're going to do in that coming year. And I know that that's not available for your personal goals always, or your purpose-driven goals, but whatever time that you have, make sure that it's uninterrupted. Make sure that you can focus, that there's no distractions, and that you are getting that plan in. Include as many of your support team as possible in this process. Obviously coworkers. I talked about partners or kids, your business partners. Make sure that if you're not doing this process together, which would be the best thing, that you're at least communicating and sharing what you've come up with as part of the planning process. Remember, not everyone thinks strategically like you do. You might have some pushback. You might have some people saying, "Why are you so focused on the future?" Be gentle with those people as you try to include them in the planning. Make sure that you explain to them why 2026 is such an important year, because it is the next step that you are taking in achieving your bigger vision or your bigger goals for your life. So let's recap. This is the time to start our plan for 2026. PLAN is an acronym, and here's what it stands for. P is picture your vision. What does your year need to look like to fit into your vision for the future? L is link resources, your time, your energy, your money. Make sure that you have a plan for those and you know what you need to get your goals accomplished. Now you can start assigning your goals. Look at the whole year, yes, but we want to prioritize the goals for the first month or the first quarter. We also want to look at those goals that have the biggest impact on our year, whether that's revenue or whatever it is. The final part of your plan is to navigate the steps. Start putting in detailed milestones that have dates assigned with them so you know when you need to accomplish each one of those steps. Okay? That is your plan for 2026. It's not difficult, but this is the time to do it. And if you are not thinking in terms of 2026 right now, you need to start doing it very soon so that you can hit the ground running January 1 and have a successful year. That's it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Check out the show notes. You can find those at wholisticproductivity.com/25. We'll have links in there for all the things that I mentioned. Make sure that you have subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We're basically on all of the major platforms out there, even some of the smaller ones as well. So you can find the show anywhere. Just like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is, so that you get the next episode when it drops on Tuesday. And if you want to watch it on YouTube, you can do that as well. Just subscribe and follow there. Make sure you follow at Wholistic Productivity on your favorite social media platform. Check out Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Substack. I mentioned YouTube. I do a lot of great productivity tips and motivation throughout the week. It's not just the podcast. You'll find that there. Again, thank you so much for listening. Great to have you here and investing in your goals. As always, like I said at the beginning of the show, my goal with this podcast is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I can't wait to see what you plan for 2026. I know it's going to be amazing. Thank you so much. See you next time. Before I sign off, close your eyes for a minute, unless you're driving. But close your eyes and imagine this. It's Friday. You're excited for the weekend. TGIF, right? You're wrapping up the work week, getting ready to leave the office. But as you're walking out the door, you start to reflect on the week and you say, what did I even accomplish this week? It's a frustrating feeling and a horrible way to start your weekend. You know that you've worked hard all week, but you have little or nothing to show for it. If you've ever had these feelings at the end of your week, I have a special offer for you to help you on your productivity journey. I talk about it all the time. Being intentional with your time is one of the biggest parts of productivity. And one of the best ways you can be intentional is to plan your week. Planning your week provides clarity on your priorities. It eliminates confusion about what needs to be done, and it sets you on a path for success. Now, I've developed the perfect tool to help you plan your week. I call it my Sunday strategy, and I want to give you my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide absolutely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter. The guide offers clear strategies for using the principles of holistic productivity to plan your week. You'll have a mindset shift away from the toxic aspects of productivity, and you'll get step-by-step directions for using the Sunday strategy worksheet. With my Sunday strategy, you only need 15 minutes each Sunday to plan out your entire week. It'll let you identify major projects and tasks that are coming up, assign those projects to specific days, and best of all, there are different sections for each area of your life: professional, personal, and purpose-driven, so you can reach all of your goals. My Sunday strategy worksheet also includes a weekly habit tracker to keep you focused on the habits that you want to develop. So if you want to avoid those Friday feelings of frustration and despair, you need my Sunday strategy worksheet. It's the perfect planning tool to help you build the winning strategy for your week. It's a resource you can come back to each day to keep you focused on reaching your goals, and it's an accountability tool to help you track your progress. Basically, it can help you have the most productive week ever. Like I said, it is completely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which also features more strategies and tips to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. To get my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide, go to mysundaystrategy.com and sign up. That's mysundaystrategy.com. There will also be a link in the show notes, but again, mysundaystrategy.com. Look forward to having you back here for the next episode of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast.